Hey!
Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to CSIS. My name is Richard Downey. I'm Deputy Director of the Africa Program here. And we're here this morning to discuss South Sudan at a very, very bleak moment in its short history. As I'm sure you'll be aware, the country's been torn apart by civil war just 2.5 years after starting life as an independent state. The rival camps supporting President al-Bashir and Riek Machar have become more entrenched since the fighting broke out in December. The army split into rival factions. It's been joined on the battlefield by an assortment of militia groups, some from outside the country, barely under control of the warring parties, not to mention the Ugandan military, which is also involved. Fighting has continued despite the cessation of hostilities agreed back in January. And the war really reflects a rupture in the ruling party, the SPLM, and the military, the SPLA. Both bodies have failed to make that transition from liberation movement into a modern army and the government of an independent state, respectively. Peace negotiations in Addis in Ethiopia have been stop-start. They're on hold currently, due to resume later this month. The United States has expressed its unhappiness with the apparent foot-dragging that's going on in Addis. President Obama last week issued an executive order that clears the way for sanctions to be imposed on individuals considered to represent a threat to peace. So the situation could not be more urgent. Time to find and explore solutions is now, and we're here this morning to discuss what those solutions might look like and what the international community, the United States in particular, can do to contribute. We're not here to apportion blame this morning. We want to focus on the task ahead and consider practical steps for how South Sudan can get itself out of this mess. Understandably, emotions are running high right now, but I hope we can encourage a calm, reflective discussion this morning. We have 3 speakers joining us to discuss the issues. On my left is Awan Gwal Riak. He serves as the Minister in the Office of the President of the Republic of South Sudan. In this role, he is responsible for coordinating policy development and implementation across all government ministries. And he's here in Washington this week as a special envoy of President Salva-Kiir for talks with the U.S. government on the conflict, and in particular to discuss what can be done to try to implement a permanent ceasefire, promote national healing and reconciliation, and address the very urgent humanitarian situation. In the middle of the group here, we have John Temin, who's Director of the Africa Programs at the United States Institute of Peace. Primarily his work at USIP is focused on helping to end Sudan, South Sudan, and Somalia's multiple conflicts and prevent new violence. He also follows developments elsewhere in sub-Saharan Africa. And at the end of our row, we have Zach Burton. He's Senior Advisor to the Office of the Special Envoy for Sudan and South Sudan at the U.S. Department of State. Before that, he was Senior Analyst for the 2 Sudans for International Crisis Group. So we're delighted to have all 3 of you here with us this morning. You have their bios, which explain who they are in more detail, but without delay, I'd like to turn to the Minister to start us off this morning with some remarks. Thank you.
Thanks, Richard. My colleagues in the panel, invited guests here, ladies and gentlemen. Let me take this opportunity to thank CSIS for this wonderful opportunity to be with you today on the issues of South Sudan. We know that you have built continued interest in Sudan, not only now, but since our decades of struggle. U.S. has been supportive. We know that we value the relationships between us and the United States. Without the help of the United States, I think this young nation wouldn't have been in surface. And during the need, we need to engage ourselves from time to time. My presentation here will not be strictly to the topic, but I would be interested to bring a little background of South Sudan and the facts, because knowing the facts, it's easy to find solutions. It's also easy to understand the issues and how we can find the way forward. South Sudan is one of the youngest nations, it's still a baby nation. It came into existence on 9th July 2011 as a result of referendum based on the Comprehensive Peace Agreement that was signed in 2005. It has a population of over 11 million, which we think could be more if we conduct our own census. We have more than 60 ethnic groups in the country, and the size of our country is bigger than the size area of Afghanistan and France. With the facts that were in the ground, and I think most of you know, South Sudan has been hit twice by two civil wars. One in 1955 all the way to 1972. Imagine that, that was a long period when we had a local autonomy. And again, from 1983 to 2005, when we got the era of the CPA, which gave the birth to our country. It has been indeed a quite long period. South Sudan is also very rich in terms of resources, oil, minerals, animals, and even human resource, which is a growing young population. The two wars affected us seriously. We do not have infrastructure. South Sudan is a very virgin land, nothing, even if we talk of reconstruction, our president mentioned it, it is really construction because we never had anything in place. During the SPLA struggle in 1994, our late chairman and the leadership of the SPLM convened a convention in a place called Shukudum in South Sudan. And that was the time we introduced the civil authority in New Sudan. It usually stayed as the movement that was fighting, but when we captured some of the areas, it was realized that there is a need for us to have a civil authority, at least to govern the issues of our civilians, to differentiate it from the army. And this introduction of new civil authority of New Sudan emerged as a result of that Shukudum Convention. Having mentioned the fact that people were fighting, one thing comes obvious in mind: we lost many generations in illiteracy because there was no proper schools. We never had skills in many things. Even today, when we talk of little things that were seen in Juba, it was from the support of the neighboring countries, East Africa in particular. So we never had skills, and with the introduction of civil authority, our late chairman used to call it survival structures. Survival structures, they were the same combatants that were taken from the army to come and rule because we never have professionals. So you get in the area of maintenance of law and order, we have those who assume the work of the police, and the same thing also with administrators. We call them survival structures because we have nothing. And the little we have, we must utilize it. We didn't have many ABCD in many of our institutions that were created. When 2005 came, we were also faced with the first challenge. We had CANS, that is Civil Authority of New Sudan, the officials that were in the liberated areas. We also had the officials that were in the government control areas. And these two workforces was a big challenge of how you can bring them to assume the work of the civil servant, given the fact that we have a peace in our country. That one faced our government immediately upon the signing of comprehensive peace agreement. With the intervention of our leadership, made it very clear that those who were in the liberated areas and those who were in the government-controlled areas are South Sudanese. And they have to be harmonized based on merits, experiences, and some qualifications. That period took us long to stabilize. The second challenge immediately that emerged were the issue of militias, because we have some of our people who were also fighting the SPLM, SPLA. Also, with the intervention of our president, Salva Kiir Mayardit, he chose the path to buy peace by integrating the militias into our security sector. And of course, the militias are not people who are trained, as well as our fighters were also not trained in doctrine of military, so that they can serve professionally. With the huge numbers of militias in search of peace, they were integrated in the SPLA. That was a challenge, but our president chose the path of uniting the country. He didn't say those should go away. No, they were integrated. These are the effects that happen in our country in regard to the situation that we were really facing. In 2010, at the elections, we were also hit with the crisis of those who lost the elections. Maybe most of you were aware of the acute problem after 2010 was the issue of Georgia Thor, who was a general commander who fought during the liberation struggle. When he failed the elections, it turned out to be a rebellion. And I think we lost many lives of our South Sudanese in that. This was followed also subsequently by General David Yao Yao. And I think most of you were aware of atrocities that we committed among ourselves in regards to that path. If these are the challenges, my presence today here as a special envoy of President Salva Kiir Mayardit will be on the principle of openness, because we have to talk straight, showing the challenges that we have in order to find solutions. And it will not be more political to say that I want to massage things. No. These are clear challenges, and they were not making of our late chairman. They are not also making of President Kiir. These are the challenges and the realities we have. And if these are the realities we have, then a problem is always defined as the status of the affairs, where they are, and the expectations. Our expectations to be a professional army is another thing that we need, and the reality is there. Moving into this to have reforms in the security sector, and especially in the country like Sudan, which is a fragile state, given the background that I mentioned here earlier, the approaches must be of careful understanding and good approach, because fragility is a problem. Our president went through many things in order to bring that country into existence through his policies that he was not reactionary. Today, with what happened in our country on December 15, which was another challenge, it emerged in our SPLM leadership. As mentioned earlier by Richard, we had two documents to be passed in the National Liberation Council. That is the Constitution to guide the party, and the manifesto. The manifesto went very well. The Constitution went with some views that were contrary to one another. And it was very simple. It would not bring even misunderstanding if there is nothing that was behind. Modes of voting, 5% that was given to the president to select and appoint people to parliament, whether to appoint the deputy chairman of the party or to be elected. These are issues that will not bring the language of guns. The total number of the delegates in the Liberation Struggle Council, it was 136. 8 had different view. 128 agreed on principle and the Constitution was passed. We never expected that we will use a language of guns among ourselves again. Also, being a young nation, we needed also to grow on principles of democracy, rule of law, respect of human rights, and to be like other nations. I know it's not easy because we have the realities that we have to go through them gradually. And we have that aspiration of becoming also like a country that respects the norms of democracy. If it resulted into something that didn't turn good, the practice of us exercising the democracy in our country, we know that the leadership of Salva Kiir Mayardit is taking it as a challenge also to bring peace back. And he mentioned it several times that I do not want to take the people of South Sudan back to war, nor himself interested again to go to the bush. When this crisis broke out on December 15th, immediately after 3 days, he declared that he is interested for peaceful settlement of the crisis. And on December 23rd, he appointed the delegation for negotiations. And his messages were very clear. What happened was very sad. And I'm not here to talk much because I know that part there is a body that is appointed already for investigation into what happened. So I will not be interested to dwell much on the area of what happened on December 15, so that I do not look here as defensive or trying to point fingers at any side. No. I'm just mentioning as facts generally to help some of you, which I know most of you are aware of the issues. The view we look at the peace talks in Addis, it's a commitment. And we also thank US, Troika, EU, and regional leaders for intervening immediately to bring us back on table. And I want to assure you, on that first day when our two delegations met in Addis, our chief negotiator, Honorable Nyal Deng Nyal, went straight, reaching the other chief negotiator on the other side, and that was Gerald Taban, and hugged one another. We don't consider this as a fight between us and Khartoum, a fight between us and another country. It's something internal, except approaching it is where we really need a great support. We don't want to lose that time so that mistrust could grow. We have our people suffered through that, and there are people today in the UN camps with very bad conditions. We are losing children every day in such camps because of bad conditions. We know that if rainy season is also coming, it's not pleasant. We said we need to engage, our mediators should engage the two parties that are fighting among themselves, instead of making it a broader conference immediately when we know cessation of hostilities agreement is not well consolidated, is not respected. There is a need to put mechanisms of verification and monitoring in the grounds to ensure the safety and security of our citizens, and also to give humanitarian access to the needy people. This is what we view, because when we had that agreement, up to today, I'm talking, since January 23rd, we do not have monitors who can verify that. And again, I'm not interested to say it's government violating, it's the rebels violating. It's not my role here. But the fact that we put the mechanisms is still not in place. In the last IGAD Extraordinary Summit in Addis Ababa, it was resolved that there will be a protection and deterrent force to be deployed to protect the monitors that can verify this cessation of hostilities, and also to protect our installations, oil fields. As a government, our president immediately accepted. It's not because of anything else that we cannot protect the oil fields, but we do not want a fight to continue among ourselves. The other side rejected the idea of protection and deterrent force. But we still feel with the support, we can still make it. If that phase is dealt with carefully, according to the roadmap of our president, we need to have a national political dialogue. This will allow those who were fearing to come out from the camps if the agreement is respected of cessation of hostilities, and they can also be participants in that conference. And maybe a question will come in if we say we need to do this in the country. The question will come in immediately. What about those who pick up arms? Will they feel secure? Will they have that confidence and trust? We say yes. Our president gave general amnesty several times. We are also interested to get support so that we build confident trust among ourselves with the support of IGAD and international community, so that we can convene and talk. And it's not first time that our people fought among themselves. It happened, and they reconciled. So this is the way we look into these issues. We mentioned that we are ready for the talks, and we need a good approach so that it can end this. Declaration of principles of how we can conduct the conference will be there. And I personally, I mentioned it several times, that with that conference, it will bring all the stakeholders, and I believe even there will be no any role of mediation that is there, but it will be there to help, to assist as a facilitation, because the views that will come in is reforms in the security sector, reforms in the judiciary, and all other institutions of the government. I do not think there will be one or other groups that are sitting on this side If I'm saying we need reforms in judiciary, then I will have another group on the other side who will say, no, 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 we don't need that. This will be the time that we air out the views of how we also examine our institutions and the way we can move the country forward with the nice reforms. It will be a general responsibility for all of us. As I mentioned earlier, it was not a making of President Kiir so that it will be seen as government is protecting its status quo. No. Even our brothers on the other side, they were in that government for long. And it was not easy to just wipe people away and say, we got good people now, you move home. It has to be done in a systematic manner that is also respecting the rights of others. So I believe in that conference, it will be successful because it will be views that we think of how we can govern ourselves. And gradually we will move. I know it will not be a matter of 1 day or two that will bring us immediately to expectations. It's something that will grow, given the facts that we have, given the lack of skills that we have. And this is where I also come in here. I had a meeting with the USAID, and I mentioned that there is a need for you as the midwife of the birth of the country of South Sudan, not to abandon us at this time and say it's punishing. Because the facts are there, and they are not making of any one of us. These are the realities we have in the grounds. And if there is anything we need most, is the support, not just punishing us. If we say we don't need talks, well and good, they will be saying these people are distracting, and they are allowing this conflict to spill also to the region. But we are committed, and if we have views, it will be resolved in a way that will bring us together. We are convinced, and even when you go to the people of South Sudan today, U.S. role is known. Without it, there is no country called South Sudan. So we always look forward to improve our relations with the U.S. government and the people, because some of you invested big time on our issues. And there is a need to continue with that support till we put our feet in the ground solid. I will not last long because I know the time is against us here. I will stop to give chance to other colleagues. We'll be interested later on for responding to any questions. Thank you for your attention.